forecast revenue, let's move now to the EBIT tab. We're going to work our way in this spreadsheet. As usual, let's just copy just one of the section dividers from our model tab and paste it here. And this time we're going to name it revenue. Right? And as we mentioned, we're going to split revenue. So we're going to have total revenue. We're going to split our revenue into three categories. Number one would be the Botox revenue. Number two would be the revenue for the fillers. And number three would be the revenue for the cosmetics, or the other revenue, which will be the remainder of the total revenue. We want to indent, so Alt H6 to indent. And what we're going to do is we're going to split the revenue drivers further into geography segments. So we have to add lines in between Botox and fillers. Two lines have to be added. So shift space, control plus twice, so shift space, control plus twice. Again, under fillers as well, shift space, control plus twice. We have the US revenue and the international revenue. Again, Alt H6. And for fillers, it's going to be exactly the same structure. All right, and lastly, for these individual segments, again, we're going to further split it into price times quantity. So two lines are needed just once more. So shift space, control plus twice, under US, under international, under US, and again under international. We've created 8 additional rows to our financial model. For quantity, the units that we count Botox products is usually vials. So we're going to use vials, so glasses of Botox in a powder form. So we're going to say vials sold. And for the price, we're going to say ASP, so average selling price for the price. So this is a quantity times price structure. Again, Alt H6. And we're going to simply copy it to the other parts as well. But one thing that's slightly different is that for fillers, we don't say vials for the units. Rather, for fillers, the units are called syringes. So if you see a filler product, if you go to a hospital and if you see a filler product, it's not contained in vials, it's rather contained in syringes. It's pre-filled, and all the doctor has to do is just take out the syringe and just inject it directly into the patient. For the Botox products, it's quite different because you have powder form Botox in the vials, and what you have to do is you have to inject some kind of saline, you have to inject some type of water inside the vial. You have to mix it up and make it into a liquid form usually, and you have to inject it yourself into a syringe and then to the patient. So it's quite more inconvenient compared to pre-filled fillers. But anyways, in most countries we understand that it's not the doctors that actually do that. They have people that help that process. So it's not a major inconvenience. Nothing important, but just some additional information on the industry. Right, now we have our model structure set up. All we have to do is, our first part again is to link up the historical data. You guys all might be very tired of the repeated process, but I think after this it will become better. So for the last time, let's prepare the historical data for the revenue. For total revenue, we can extract the total revenue from either the model tab, because we've already, prepared the data for revenue on the model tab, or you can always go straight to the income statements raw data and pull out the raw data from here. But what I do prefer is I prefer to go to the model tab for consistency and bring revenue from 2018. So I did control page up. I selected 2018 revenue and I'm going to shift it across to the right. Right, and for the product revenues, we do have product revenues under the 10K raw data. So usually the notes of the financial statements, we do have Botox filler, cosmetics, revenue data here. So let's simply just link those items just once more. For Botox, go to the 10K, we have Botox revenue from 2018. It's quite convenient. For fillers as well, lastly, for cosmetics products, and let's all copy it across all at once. And for the geographic data as well, same for the US Botox revenue. We also have the international Botox revenue. We have the filler revenue for the US. And the filler revenue for the international segments. So make sure you don't make any mistakes while doing this. It's very hard, it's very difficult to realize that you have made a mistake. Especially one of the most common mistakes is to bring the wrong geography segment or wrong product revenue. One of the most common mistakes that people make when doing, even very experienced modelers also make those kind of mistakes, even me myself too. Always we have to be careful. And lastly, we also need either of the two. So if we have ASP, we could just calculate vials sold. We can simply divide total revenue by either of the two. Luckily, we do have the data for average selling price. So similarly, we will again go to the 10K. We have average selling price by segment. So it's conveniently classified into our modeling structure. We do have US Botox average selling prices from $50 per vial which seems to be going down. We're going to analyze it in just a moment. And for international ASP as well, seems like it's slightly lower than the US ASP, but still the trends are similar. It's going down for some reason. Fillers. And lastly, international filler ASP. Before moving forward, let's do just a little bit of formatting. I'm going to do a shift space control B, so we're going to thicken the total revenue and the product revenues. We usually draw borderlines after we've done all the modeling processes, because if you do have borderlines, it makes it look better, but in terms of doing the financial modeling itself, it makes the task much more inefficient, as when we copy the data around or cut paste the data around, the borderlines are going to be very, very annoying. You have to spend a lot of time in formatting the borderlines. So that's the reason we do it afterwards, after we finished all of the models. But the downside is that while you're doing the financial modeling, it's very confusing. So at least what we can do is we can, make some of the rows highlighted so that it is less confusing. Right, for vials sold, now we can simply divide revenue by average selling price. But the moment we do that, it creates a very small number. It's simply because these are in US dollar million terms, so these have very huge units. But these are just US dollar terms. So vials sold, this number is 0.59 is in million vials terms. So the units are too big. So in this case, we want to make the units smaller. So we want to multiply it. So F2 to edit the cells. And we want to multiply it by 1,000. So now it's in thousands, 1,000 vials. So after getting rid of the decimal points, this is 585,000 vials sold in 2018. I'm going to shift it to the right. And the formula structure will be identical for the other quantity line items as well. So all we have to do is we just want to copy the entire row, paste, so Control V, Control V, Control V, and you can always press F2 to check whether if your formula has been placed correctly. So F2, and you can see that syringes sold is total revenue divided by ASP, so it seems like it's in place. All right, and lastly, we do want to state units that are not in US dollar million terms. In this case, the vials sold and the average selling prices. So what we're going to do is we want to add US dollars to the back of the ASP, but rather than doing that 4 times, what I recommend is we're going to use the change function. We're going to select this entire column. Control H gets us to the change function, replace function. We're going to replace average selling price to average selling price parentheses USD parentheses. And Alt A at the same time. We've made 4 replacements. Enter, escape. We've changed it all at once. For vials sold, we only have 2 of these, so you can also use the replace function if you want, but I'm simply going to just edit by pressing F2 and typing in vials in thousands. Copy, paste. For syringes sold, syringes K, again copy and paste. And again we have our historical revenue set up, and now it's time to analyze the historical revenue.